a steep decline, isn't it? I mean, from a contribution of 30% to 8%. I was just trying to do the calculations quickly. I mean, we're talking about more than a fourfold drop here. What's going on?
Yes, I think we must realize that the Land Bank went through a very difficult period in terms of being fraud, etc. It's well documented, everybody knows about it. But they've come up with a very good turnaround strategy over the past 2, 3, 4 years. So it is turning around at the moment. But they've obviously lost market share in the process. I think their mandate has changed fairly dramatically. We see that they are starting to become a bit more of a role player again. But there's a lot of work to be done. Obviously, in that space that was left, the commercial banks took up that space, I think, very effectively.
Yeah.
They've done pretty well out of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, your finance has become more expensive in agriculture. But we've got to live with that, and we've got to make do with that.
Yeah. Now, we don't want to play the blame game here, but clearly someone who has to blame for the collapse of the Land Bank and the kind of problems that it is facing. Whose fault was it?
Yes, it's a very difficult question, and perhaps
let's point the finger where it's supposed to
go. Okay, I think with the previous Minister of Agriculture, the Land Bank was moved out of Treasury to Department of Agriculture. I think the oversight probably wasn't what it should have been. I think people were appointed that shouldn't have been there. There are still some criminal investigations going on. I think government did the right thing by moving the Land Bank back to the National Treasury, and we know that they've got their fingers on the pulse there, and they're managing it properly.
Should we trust the politicians to get it right this time round?
Yes, I think so. I think we are we're very aware of who the Land Bank management is now. They cleaned up, and I think they put the right people in position, and I think it's really actually running very well. I think they've had 2 years of clean audits, and there's still some problems that they have to sort out from the previous time, but it's going well now. I
suppose with challenges come opportunities. If you pointed out earlier in your response, you said the private sector has picked up, so we are seeing more contributions out of banks like ABSA, Standard Bank, etc., the like. But of course, with commercial enterprise on play inside that, there is also the issue of cost. Have they been financing agriculture, do you think, in a cost-effective manner?
Yes, I think so. I think the rates are competitive with any rates, whether it be also from the DFIs like Land Bank, IDC, Kula, etc. So I think it's been pretty aware, but obviously the rates will depend on the risk and on the collateral, etc. So it will vary from business to business.
But I know, of course, I've been reporting agriculture for a number of years now, and I've never known farmers to be happy with any situation. They will, of course, complain about the current pricing, but at the same time, I think maybe let's cut them some slack. Don't we need concessionary financing, particularly on agriculture, particularly in a developing economy like South Africa?
Well, yes, that was the point of a workshop that we hosted recently with all the major role players, the commercial banks, the insurance industry, the DFIs, National Treasury, Department of Agriculture, we're all there. And it was to look at new ways and innovative ways of financing, perhaps at interest rates that are below prime, for example.
Sure.
Especially for the developing agriculture sector, because the commercial sector is not doing too badly. There are a few regulatory issues that we must clear up, and we're seeing the national or the credit regulator soon around the National Credit Act, around certain interpretations. But our biggest problem is broadening our access to agriculture and broadening the access to finance, especially for the developing farmers. So we need risk-sharing models, bringing different partners in. Commercial sector with the private, with the public sector like the DFIs, with the insurance companies, to see how we can create that access to the developing farmers.
Did you find consensus?
I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we still have a lot of work to do. This workshop was actually a challenge by Minister Pravin Gordhan of National Treasury, and he said, we're doing quite a bit, but we're not doing enough, and we couldn't agree more. And that's why also from private sector, we're trying to facilitate this process.
Absolutely. We all understand that the government has a lot of challenges and a lot to deal with on its plate. Is there a role, do you think, for the private sector? And can the private sector play a bigger role than it's currently playing now?
Sure, it can, and I think it's also willing to do it, but then we must have the right sort of support from government and the right mandates also to partner with the DFIs, etc. And I think this is where we actually want to challenge government, because IDC and Land Bank now are actually, to our way of thinking, well positioned. They've got the right people, they're doing excellent work, but we need more support from government, and we need to broaden their mandate to be more effective in developing agriculture.
So if I were going to ask you to sum up and try to give us a sense of where you see agricultural financing in South Africa in the future, what would you say?
Well, we'd like to see better partnerships. We'd like to see better models for financing. We'd like to see the insurance coming in a bit stronger, but perhaps even government as a reinsurer, as happens in many countries. So, but those partnerships and those structures aren't in place really in the developing modern world we should go in with agriculture. And we need to support both commercial agriculture and developing agriculture, perhaps for different reasons. It's not an either or, it's an and situation.
I was going to ask you to say, are you hopeful or are you not hopeful? What would you say?
No, I'm very positive, and I think the role players are keen to make it work, but we need to do some real hard work in this regard.